Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah with the Midwest Writing Center, and happy Valentine's Day. I debated for a little while whether or not I really wanted to focus on love stories today. I didn't want it to be I didn't want it to be trite. I didn't want it to be like annoying. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about any sort of prescribed holiday, and um, I don't want to be part of the problem. But I have been wanting to do something on letters not as a narrative form, which is what I always go to. Letters are my thing. I call them epistolary. That's the fancy literary word for journal writing, letter writing, stuff like that. Um but I also, I came to writing letters as a narrative form because I wrote letters as correspondence. Lost the word for correspondence. Um and with the internet, this video will be out there. So if you want to write a love letter to your best friend, to your child, to your parents, or your lover, you can come back to this. So something I did in preparation was, or slow down. Today you can expect a short lesson on how to write a love letter. Then we'll talk about what's coming up, what is up at the Midwest Writing Center, and then we'll do a free write. And the free write will be to use this lesson. So I'll put it up on the screen at the end. But hopefully you're taking notes. So yeah, pause, go grab a notebook and a pen or whatever it is that you write with. If you use a computer, cool, or your phone, whatever it is. But for today, you're going to want something to write with. So something I did in preparation was I read, well, first initially I wanted to use this book called Adverbs to talk about how we talk about love, particularly in literature. That is one of my all-time favorite books. It's by Daniel Handler. It changed the way I write. It changed the way I think about the world. Highly recommend it. And what that book is a series of vignettes being just little snapshots, little scenes, super short stories about love. And in this book, he talks about love in such a large variety of ways. Something confusing about this book, and I'm sure I've referenced this book in one of these videos before, but I don't know if I've said this, and it's relevant now that I'm talking about it again in case you want to go pick it up, because it is such a good lesson on writing. That book in general is just a beautiful, beautiful lesson on writing. But something Daniel Handler does in that book that's really confusing is he reuses character names, and they are not the same people necessarily. I could revisit it. I could, try and figure out if any of these characters are related. So that was really confusing for me. The back of the book calls it a novel. I would not call it a novel. Anyway, so I was going to really dive into that to look at both how we talk about love in literature and also different voice styles, because Daniel Handler has he is deft with, my apologies, I am receiving an email. I apologize. I was going to close out of my email, got distracted, wanted to open it. I did not open it. He is just a master of voice, and a lot of the time I would say he has a really recognizable voice. He's simultaneously like deeply sentimental and very funny. But that's not always. He changes voice well. He adapts his narrator in everything he does. Anyway, so I was reviewing that book and some and things like Love Letters of Great Men, which, why is that a title? It's actually a book I bought on my honeymoon, is Love Letters of Great Men. They're super disappointing. Things that you can find stuff like that anywhere. I happen to be someone who loves letters. They were all literary figures in this book, very slim, less than 100 pages. And I was at a fancy famous bookstore. So I was like, yeah, this is my honeymoon and this is love letters, but it actually kind of sucked. But you can find them. You can pick up a book at any bookstore or library that's collected letters, collected love letters by whatever kind of famous person you want, of whatever gender you want, of whatever sexuality you want, of whatever level of romance or non-romance you want. They exist. They've been collected. Most of them are public domain because when they're collected like that, they're old. So you can also find them online. And then, of course, there are contemporary living writers and poets who are writing love poems and love letters and breakup stories, etc., all the time. Currently, you can get on any website, really, social media, YouTube, the Poetry Foundation, and find them with, a keyword search. But what I found when I was doing this is that most of these, especially the ones that were not written to be shared with the world, the ones that were just written as correspondence, were not that great. And by that, I mean, there was no real way to use them for instruction, and there was no great way to use them in such a way that would be useful to us. I thought about, because a lot of my friends have really enjoyed James Joyce's love letters, which are decidedly not romantic. I don't care. Look it up. But he writes love letters to his wife about parts. It's just, being famous does not mean that you can bring your sweetheart, a piece of writing that'll make them blush. And that's another thing. We see so much content in the world: songs, poems, paintings, sculptures, every form of art has so many attempts to say I love you to a romantic partner or a child. That's a really common one as well. And the reason for that is it's never enough, right? They're always an attempt to say something ineffable. Ineffable meaning, there are no words for it. And it's just, it's because it's so hard, right? We specifically talk about love and reinforce this idea that, like, you cannot describe it, you cannot speak into it, which makes it even harder to talk about, right? We haven't put together the words that we believe are the right ones. And that's great. That's really what all emotions are, right? They're just hard to put words to. And that's also something that I really love about writing, about literature, is that words are so specific, and that limits them, but it also makes it more of a puzzle to parse them out. Okay, so I'm just going to, I have a few like rural classics up here, so that I'm not just being instructional. So we'll pull up Sonnet 18 by Shakespeare, just to look at a classic love poem. Don't know how much you can see. Okay, cool. Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometimes too hot the eye of heaven shines, and too often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, and by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, by eternal summer shall not fade. By thy eternal By chance or nature's changing course untrimmed, by thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So what's happening here, and I ended up going with Shakespeare in the end because we're familiar. Like in our cultural consciousness, Shakespeare's there. And we also have all heard, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Whether or not you've read this piece, you know that line, those lines. So he goes through a couple of seasons and he's like, seasons fade, but you don't. And that's really the whole point here. But instead of, and it's beautiful. And it would be great to be the recipient of that, right? But instead of going through, 6 different love poems or love letters or short stories about love, I put together a formula and we're going to do it together. So it's time to get your pen and paper and we're going to do it. So first things first, think of the person to whom you want to write this. You've got all the options in the world. Your pet, your sibling, your child, your best friend, and of course, a romantic partner. So that's the first thing. I would even write it down. I'll start screen sharing again. I was hoping to wait to screen share. I'm going to do this for my cat. So make this full screen. Okay. Who are you writing? My answer. I'll number these. It'll be less weird if I number them. 1. Ooh, don't love that. There we go. It's just gonna be this way. Okay. Who are you writing? Carter. That's my cat's name. He's sitting on my feet. What is a really strong memory? So keep in mind whether or not you want to share this with that person. I have no shame sharing this with my cat, but I can't say for sure that he will understand it. I would say it is really nice to write with the person in mind with the intention of giving it to them. That is probably a weird idiosyncrasy about me, but I really have to believe that the recipient of my letters is going to read it. It's not always the case. Sometimes that's a bad idea because sometimes the letter's not so nice. But with Valentine's Day in mind, we're giving you a gift to give to the person. So the next thing we want is a really strong memory. I think a lot of the time what we get here is the time we first met. I don't think that's necessarily the best one. If you met a long time ago, or you didn't fall in love at first sight, like meeting is maybe not memorable. If it is, dope, go with it. Maybe come up with a few memories. Let's say up to 3. More than 3 and it's going to be a lot. So maybe the first time you drove somewhere together, or the first time you shared favorite music, first time you were injured, first time you called them with an emergency. That's something that I've found, like in interacting with humans, not in literature, but a strong, not bonding point, but a point that points out that the bond is strong is when you call somebody with an emergency. With my best friend in college, I had to go to the hospital at one point, and I was like, I need someone to tell my parents. I need someone to be my emergency contact. I need someone to hold my hand, whatever it is. And that was my best friend. So that's a good one. But it's just a really strong memory. Maybe I said, think of a strong memory, and you had it right away. Maybe you don't, maybe it's not a happy memory. Maybe it's like, I remember how we both got food poisoning that one time when we went to the hot dog restaurant. Sorry, hot dog restaurants. They do exist. And if you weren't sure, they do exist. Or maybe, maybe it's the first time. It doesn't have to be a first either. It can be the reason, though, that I'm saying the first time or the time when is because if something has become routine, it's less specific. But if you've got this really great routine, like maybe you love making popcorn and sitting on the couch and watching reruns of Home Improvement, and you do that 3 times a week. Dope. That's a strong memory, even if it's not a single time. If anyone out there watches reruns of Home Improvement, I am curious to know. But whatever, whatever the thing is. For Carter, my cat, I'm gonna go with the first time we met. And one time he got into some toxins, and that was the scariest thing. He ate some terpenoid. Did I spell it right? Yes, I did. Okay. And then maybe a third scene of like when he started hunting. Oh, there it is. Okay, I was gonna say hunting socks because he brings me socks, but one time he brought me a live chipmunk. Now he hunts socks. So you've got, spend some time on this. Don't rush it. Maybe you can brainstorm. Maybe you've got 15 things that come to mind and you want to really, because it took me a second to get to the chipmunk. Maybe, you've got a few options and you want to narrow it down. You want the one that really brings the most sensory details to your mind is going to be the most helpful. So even though this was just one time, it was only a few minutes of my life, I've got really strong sensory memory of that. Same with this one, because it was very scary. It doesn't have to be scary. It's probably better if it's not. But something that makes the scary stuff, the emergencies, useful in moments like this is that they are so visceral and we learn so much from them. So that's why they're useful. But you're going to need to be able to tie it to, something a little happier. So keep that in mind. I was looking at my numbering here and let's just put an A here. Yeah, we're gonna let the numbers be weird. That's what's gonna happen. Now I want some really good adjectives. This can be anything. I also have a list. It's not anywhere near me because of course it's not, that I like to keep of just like sensory memories or like references to the sensory, which could be things that I want to work on, things I want to figure out how to describe later. My favorite adjectives, as we all know, are verbs. So this is again a time to brainstorm. Maybe you don't have to, but it will be useful. to brainstorm here. So soft seems really obvious to me. He's a cat. I also like the word cutting. That's a verb that is often used as an adjective, right? Like a cutting insult. Uh, or, you know, something that cut through your facade, right? Somebody who can soften you has cut through your outside hardness. I think cutting, I mean, is maybe not great for everyone. But that's something I think we see a lot when we become vulnerable with someone. They have cut through a layer of us to a softer center. And that's your best friend, that's your child, that's your romantic partner, and maybe that's your cat. So there's a word I'll use. Other senses are good, not just what we see and touch. We've got see, hear, smell, touch, taste. So maybe you really like your partner's BO, or your cat has really stinky breath. And even though they have really strong BO or stinky breath, you love them. So fish breath. There's also, I don't know, have they been sick? Have you been sick? Is there something that reminds you of, you know, what they cook, or my cat's got a really distinct voice. But maybe they sing to you, or maybe, you know, the first time you heard your child speak or giggle or whatever, that did something. That's beautiful and wonderful and worth writing down. So maybe, you know, maybe fish breath, right? That's a smell, you know it right away. Soft, that's a tactile, easy one. I don't have a really good description of the voice here, but I've got something to work with. I'm saying, come back to this when I have distinct voice. This is again working with your memory. So especially if you can tie it back to this 1 to 3 memories that you're using. I know the smell of terpenoid. I would call it sharp. I would say it's a sharp smell. It's a chemical smell, but it's a little woody. So that's, you know, that's going to be useful because I'm already ready for that one. What was I feeling when I had a live chipmunk in my lap? Panic. At first I didn't know it was alive. There was some awe. My heart rate probably increased because I was panicked about having a chipmunk in my lap. You know, there was also fear with the terpenoid. So here's some fear. It was a lot. It was a lot of fear. In retrospect, it's a little silly. I mean, I was besides myself. I was distraught. And these are just more references for me to later come up with adjectives. So I would say fish breath is musty. So gross. Maybe wet. There's, you know, like a dampness of smell too. This is just gross. But maybe, you know, if it's a romantic partner and you have woken up next to them for the first time and that's your really strong memory, maybe like they had gross breath and you're like, and I love you anyway. Or baby's breath, you know, that's a really sweet kind of breath. So weird, the things I'm saying right now. You know, we've got soft skin, maybe we've got calloused skin. You know, the pads on a cat's paw are a little bit rough. Ooh, I don't know your instance. It would be really fun if I had somebody sitting here with me. Uh, but I can't see the comments while I screen share. So if anybody's hanging out with me, I'm gonna stop the share and see if anybody's hanging out with me. Let me know, what are your adjectives or the moment that you're working with? No comments. But if you're here, let me know, because it's gonna make way more sense if you've got a subject in mind, a person that you're thinking of, or a cat, I guess. You can have any kind of pet. It can be your horse or your porcupine. I want pictures of any pet that you have. I can't find my Zoom screen now. I apologize. Okay, going back to share screen. So you can spend, I mean, you should spend more time than I've given you currently on your adjectives. They're going to be, as long as you have a strong sensory memory, and it doesn't have to be immediately sensory, but if you've got a strong memory, you can mine it for sensory details. But the sensory details are always going to be the thing that grounds. In any instance, sensory details matter. I taught a workshop this weekend that was focused on details. And every time we would look at a detail, I want to go deeper. I want to interrogate this. I want to mine for the treasure within. Because when I say soft, that could mean fur, that could mean fabric, that could mean like pliable. So when we say soft, and I'm talking about dog's ear, or I'm trying to think of something that's like squishy. Dog's ear versus stress ball. Play-Doh. Let's go with Play-Doh. They're different phenomenons. Also, there's rough and smooth, or rough versus soft, smooth versus soft. Soft skin, rough skin. I know that's something we see a lot when we hear about love stories, is either really soft skin or like calloused hands. Things to think about. So spend some time on your adjective list. Maybe pause me and really mine for those details. If then you're writing a romantic story, sorry friends, I am feeling just a touch under the weather, so I'm gonna keep drinking as I need to. I think it's fine to use romantic references in non-romantic contexts personally. Maybe you don't. In which case, instead of referencing a famous romantic thing, don't. It also, I mean, this part's kind of optional, but it's also a fun, because we're gonna tie that strong memory into the rest of what we're saying here. So it doesn't have to be a famous romantic thing. It doesn't have to be romantic, but it can be like if we're going with a best friend thing, you can say, I never had that experience before, and I grew up watching movies like The Sandlot, and that was then this. No, that's not that was then, this is now. That is not the story I meant to go for. Now and then is what I was going to say. And so we grew up thinking that like our friends would have a code that we would flash a flashlight into each other's bedroom or use a walkie-talkie or whatever, and then we would all gather in the street at midnight, and that wasn't your life. So that's the thing that you're going to reference here in that moment. Or I don't know, the pet thing kind of knocks me on my butt a little bit. The pet thing can work in the same way as a best friend thing. A sibling can work in the same way as a best friend thing. With a sibling, you're going to reference probably your childhood, your parents, maybe you had separate childhoods. I don't know your life. Um, so yeah, you're gonna want to also take some time to think of another thing to reference, and you can use that in a comparison or a contrast or a parallel, but it's nice to have something else to ground the piece outside of just me and you, writer and recipient. Really, choosing a pet for this one was difficult, but I thought it might be too weird to write a love letter to my sweetheart live. Um, Also, I don't want it to seem like it has to be romantic. I think that in a way, all letters are love letters. Perhaps I am writing, an angry letter to a landlord because they're, raising my rent. But I think I could still make the argument that that's a love letter. It's just a love letter to myself. The recipient is not me. I could really argue anything about letters. So that's neither here nor there. Letters come from a place of passion, I think is the point. We don't, especially when we have short form communication like text messages, instant messages, sitting down to write something, which I suppose is not long form, but longhand, you've got to be dedicated to it. Even if it is an email to a landlord, there's something motivating that is more than a text message, right? Okay, so reference to a famous thing. Okay. Talking pets in movies, adventure movies. Witches. Maybe not witches. Yeah, witches. Okay. So then the next thing is this moment that's right now. So for this section, you're going to think about where is your relationship today? That may be here. Where is the relationship today? It may be not where you want it to be, and it may be exactly where you want it to be, or anywhere on the spectrum. So this is the moment to take some notes again. Where are we now versus before versus future? Where do I want to be? What do I love about this moment? What do I believe optimistically about this moment? It doesn't have to be positive. Maybe this is a Dear John. Dear John, I didn't know until years into my epistolary writing. Dear John is a breakup letter. But for today, we're going to look at optimistic beliefs. They don't have to be. You don't have to be optimistic. But that's where I'm going with mine. And let's say we can, you don't have to, get into the moment when I'm handing this letter to the recipient, or the moment I'm writing this letter. Some real again, detailed, tangible moments here. What/where am I physically in this moment? Assumptions about this moment for the recipient. So here is an asterisk. We write letters to someone, but we're really focused on ourselves in them, and that is not ideal. when we express love, we're saying, I feel, I feel, I feel. Um, but I think it's really useful to remember this is about the recipient, at least as much as it is about the writer, at least as much. So, as much as I'm going to be saying, here's how I feel, here's what I experienced, make sure the focus is on the recipient. Now, technically speaking, this will be in first person. I mean, it doesn't have to be. You could very well make it like a story, do it third person. But it's first person direct address. That's the like, I'll make a header. It does not want me to make a header. Okay. Letters are first person direct address. So the difference between second person and direct address I've talked about in other videos, but direct address, so second person equals you. You is the main character. Second person is very much like first or third person. First person is I am telling this story. Second person is you are telling this story. Third person is he, she, they are telling this story. So a lot of the time, second person isn't directly to someone. So direct address means I am talking to you. There we go. I'm gonna, my keyboard or my trackpad, I mean, is kind of going out on this computer a little bit. So I apologize for that. So now we get started. My cat's name is Carter. Dear Carter. You don't have to say dear. I'm a fan. I often just go with the name, but we're being old timey and romantic today. So then I will say really strong memory. Okay. The first time we met, here's where I'm going to go for my adjectives, which I didn't include anything about the first time we met. I was handed an unevenly, see, that's not a very great adjective. So probably when I come back and I want to revise this, I will end up highlighting this word unevenly. Unevenly, oops. And that's fine. First drafts are first drafts. Unevenly weighted box. And see, here we go. Already I'm done. An unbalanced box. It shifted weight in my hands. And I was afraid to drop it. I put it on the ratty. Oh, what's that material? Tweed. I don't think my couch was tweed. I don't technically know what tweed is, but it makes me think of those elbow patches on like old man professor suits. On the ratty tweed-ish couch and the folded top popped open just a bit at the center. And there you were. You must have been. So now I'm focusing on you over me. So first, this first sentence, paragraph, is about where I was when we first met. Now I'm projecting because my cat has not explicitly told me these details. If you are speaking to a human, they may have. If they haven't, you can project too. You must have been scared, but you looked positively bewildered, maybe bemused. There wasn't, you must be terrified in the dark with all that movement. There wasn't fear in your eyes, only wonder. So, background, my cat was a gift. I don't recommend giving anything alive as a gift. This worked out, but I don't recommend it. Someone had tied a see-through. I do this a lot when I'm writing. I can't find the words I want necessarily when I want them. So I do this, or like I act out whatever it is I'm trying to do. I'm trying now to think of the word sheer. I thought of it. It's not my favorite word. I'll probably come back and change that one. A sheer purple ribbon in a bow around your neck. And while precious, I immediately feared you would choke. You showed no such fear. I'll probably develop this scene a little bit. I don't actually love the language I'm using here. It doesn't sound like me to me, and I think something really nice to do in epistolaries is to use your own voice. It's tempting, I think, to write kind of fancy because that's what we see when we see love letters on TV, when we read them. I think a lot of that is just because they're old. Most of the literature that is advised how we look at letters is old, and so they use old language. You don't have to do that. I think it's slightly less believable if we don't use our own voices. So I'm not being a great example, but I also, really strongly believe in revision. Actually, I think I will probably continue on with this piece. I'm going to keep going now, but I think I'll continue on with this piece and bring it back and talk about revision. Since if you're able to watch me do it live, we can look at what revision looks like too. And so it's all in real time. Okay, so you showed no such fear. Now, I don't have the strongest memory of this next moment, but I feel like, so I have two options. I can skip it. I can skip to the next meaty moment, so to speak, the next moment that I can really grasp onto, that happened that same day, or I can infer. I definitely picked him up out of this box. I don't remember picking him up out of this box, right? So I can skip ahead to the next thing I do remember, or not. I was so immediately in love. Scared, yes, because I didn't find you. I didn't choose you. You looked at me. Oh, that's the header. I was like, why is that there? You looked at me and it was clear we belonged here. The next thing I did, which I will go into, I think I'll put some brackets here so I remember to return, showed him off to a friend. So I took a little trip with this cat in my arms in a busted up, very loud car, to introduce him to people. I just wanted to show off. But also, like really a really special person who, I believed we were all, and still believe this is true, We were all family in this way, and family should meet. It was really nice. Then what's the next memory? So we're in love, and then something scary happens. And then here's a trick. Using the word remember is super powerful. I don't know the reason. But anytime you can say either I remember or do you remember, it's super powerful. So that's what I'm going to do here. Do you remember though? Or maybe I hope you don't remember. I hope you don't remember a few months later. I thought you might die. Boom. Powerful. So then we're going to talk about terpenoid. I'm gonna talk about how scary that was. I'm gonna talk about, and it's a little bit funny in retrospect and describing it to describe a cat being high. But I'm gonna go into that. Yeah, we'll have a paragraph or two. We were okay. We moved from house to house. It was stressful, but we had each other, right? So there's my transition. If I were going in chronological order, the live chipmunk would go, I don't know, here, which I want to. I want to include the live chipmunk because I can do a callback to it. And I'll go on, maybe a paragraph or two, right? And then I'll call back to an earlier part of the thing. Call back to chipmunk, chipmunk, not chimpmunk. That's the kind of animal I have never seen before. It's a joke. It's like a rodent monkey combo. Call back to chipmunk with the sock hunting, and then to my famous then to my famous romantic thing. So this is where I'm going to do that. Cultural reference to a romantic thing, which I then am going to use the callback to the chipmunk thing to tie into the romantic cultural reference. So what's going to happen here, you can't see me gesturing. What's going to happen here is I'm going to say we were okay. We had each other. Then I'm going to say, like when famous story. You know, like when Lassie came home. I haven't actually seen Lassie. That may be a bad reference. And then, you know, like when a thing happened, this thing still happens. Then I'm doing my callback. And scrolling up. So this thing still happens is a good transition between my romantic reference and today, but it is also the thing that's going to tie me to this moment right now. In this moment right now, I wish you all of this comfort, this home, this love. Happy Valentine's Day, Sarah. And there you go. So we'll start up here. We're gonna leave this. This is gonna be our thing that we come back to. I'll leave the screen on this in just a moment. For now, the lesson is done. I'm gonna give you updates on the Midwest Writing Center, and I wish that you write more light into your life, of course. But then I'll pull that back to the screen before I turn off the video. Okay, so what's up at the Midwest Writing Center? First of all, in just 10 days, very exciting, the Iron Pen contest will be live. You can register now. It's $10 per entry per genre. So if you want to enter 12 times in 3 genres, then you'll pay $120. You don't have to pay once for entry, once for a genre, just $10 an entry. Everyone who enters also has the opportunity to win full tuition to the Collins Writers Conference in June. That's the I think the 4th week of June. It's going to be, it's always really amazing. I always talk about how amazing it is, and that's because it is. I like to reiterate that I work for the Writing Center because I love the Writing Center. I don't love the Writing Center because I work here. So it's going to have, I can't yet announce the faculty, but we're going to have a variety of workshops in different genres with absolute stars of their fields who will teach us so much. So anyone who enters Iron Pen has the opportunity to win full tuition to the Collins Writers Conference, everything that comes with that. And we also, for our first place winners this year, we will have cash prizes, which is really exciting. Our first through third places, I'll get medals and certificates anyway. So let's talk about the rules. So on Friday, February 24th at 5 p.m. Central Time, we will release the prompt. It'll come to your inbox. It'll be on our website. It'll be on our socials, and then you have 24 hours. So you have until 5 p.m. the next day, Saturday, the 25th, to write into that prompt. Then we will have a reading for headlining the winners, but anyone who participates is welcome to join us to read what they wrote for the Iron Pen contest. And we'll announce the winners there. And winners will be announced before that event, but it'll be a really great reading. It's always a really great reading. And what I really love about this contest, which I've participated in many times, is that it makes you flex your muscles. It makes you work out your writing muscles. And it's always very generative just by its nature. And you aren't doing what you're used to doing, which is how it's a workout. It's really awesome. On March 2nd, we have another workshop with Ida Zalelian, which will be on starting stories and using the vignette is the word I use a lot, but using snapshots, turning them into fuller stories. And that's a favorite topic of mine. So I will be in that class. I'm really excited to learn how to make my vignettes turn into a long form story. Of course, you can do it short form if you want to. We already know, I did an interview a few weeks ago with Ida Zalelian, and she is a genius. She is a really good writer. She's a really good teacher. And her classes are really fun. They're generative, they're interactive. I went to the last one and it was really great. She's also going to be having another workshop the first Thursday of April on telling family stories. And our friends at Legacy Book Press will be having a contest for free tuition to that class for 2 people. So that'll be really cool, especially since Legacy Book Press, publishes memoirs. So if you're writing family stories, maybe that's another opportunity to put that family story out into the world. Coming up tomorrow, Ryan Collins, Melissa Conway, and I believe Farah Marklovitz will be opening for a really excellent show with, I'm going to say, at Roz Talks. Sorry, I'm just really worried I'm going to get the name of the artist wrong. So give me just a moment. I'm going to go to that. Okay. Yeah, I was 1 letter off, but it would have changed the whole word. Claire Rousey will be playing at Roz Talks, and Ryan Collins, Melissa Conway, and Farah Marklovitz will be opening. That's going to be a really, really cool show. Those are all really exploratory artists who really know how to use their tools. Claire Rousey is a musician with some strong literary content. It's going to be really great. Of course, most shows at Roz Talks are. We have open submissions currently for the Great River Writers Retreat. The winner of the Great River Writers Retreat gets a week at the Benedict House Monastery to just work on writing. You'll be fed, you'll be housed. It's this beautiful verdant environment. Verdant really means green. Just surrounded by nature and just working. And then of course the winner of the Great River Writers Retreat will headline a reading as well. And our Young Emerging Writers Internship is also accepting applications now. So that's for writers ages 15 to 19 years old in the Quad City area. Okay, I'm gonna pull that. Wait, I'm gonna see if anybody's got any questions for me since I was whining about that. Nope. Okay. So I'm gonna pull up that document again, and I'm just gonna, you can pause it on the screen share. And then I hope that you go ahead and write more light into your life. Thank you for hanging out with me.